Good. So, welcome back to our summer series, everybody. Our series, How to Be a Leader in Today's World. And I can't believe it. We're already here at episode 4. Can you, Lisa? I mean, time flies.
Time flies, especially in the summer holidays, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, episode 4. So today's episode is dedicated to intentional leadership with a focus as how leaders we can get those results. Because as you know, let's face it, as leaders, unless we're producing results, we are nothing. Even through challenging time, they are always expected.
Mm.
So just before we start, for those who haven't joined us before, I'm Lisa Rogers. I am an ICF certified professional coach with over 20 years industry experience. I qualified as a coach over 5 years ago, and I've had the privilege of working with a wide range of senior leaders from a variety of industries. And I'm just really fascinated on how we all learn, develop and adapt to different situations, and just really look forward to spending the next 30 minutes with you all. And
And it
with
was,
me is Penilla.
thanks. And it was actually during learning that you and I met each other for the first time in Hong Kong many years ago, wasn't
It
it?
was, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. The best
And
course I've ever been on, Penilla.
yeah, me too. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Pernille Baumann, and I bring over 28 years of leadership experience in the international luxury hospitality industry and more than 10 years as a coach. I'm a MCC certified coach with the International Coach Federation, and I blend practical wisdom with coaching expertise to really empower professionals and organizations. My background as a high performance coach and seasoned hotelier really equips me to help you unlock your potential and achieve your goals. And I'm dedicated to everybody's success, and I'm ready to support you and your organizations in navigating challenges, driving transformation, and elevating your performance to new heights.
Okay, so Penilla, to kick us off then today, how can we get those results?
Well, yeah, that is a good question. And one that I think we get asked a lot also in our group coaching sessions when we
Mhm.
have those. Um, we get that question asked a lot. And it's about turning a crisis into an opportunity. And it's not easy,
No.
but it is possible with the right mindset and action that follows through. A leader who can go in and do this and learn to do this will not only survive the crisis, but will actually thrive going forward. And having learned from the experience, they will come out much stronger on the other side and move the organization and the team forward as I see it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing that word again, Penilla, mindset,
Yeah.
which relates back to who we are fundamentally as a leader.
Yeah, crisis really, I would say, forces people out of their comfort zone and encourages new ways of
Mhm.
thinking, doing, and being. What it does is it challenges your mindset often sort of being this set way of us doing things. And for those of you who attended our last episode where we spoke about agility, we really touched on that mindset piece as well. So if you have an open or a growth mindset, then we can start to build new strategies to overcome and achieve results as the old ways of working might be broken. And that's what we're sort of looking at when we talk about mindset. Is it time to tweak something with what's maybe holding us back or the way we've always done things?
Absolutely, Pernilla. I think, you know, if we think about the last challenge or crisis that impacted us, you know, I think it's always good to then reflect back, you know, and think about, you know, did you focus on what had happened, so you were stuck in the past,
Mm.
or focus on the present, and you know, really, how can you get through it and gain momentum for when the storm passes, which is more results orientated and
Mm.
results focused.
Mm.
And again, really importantly, as a leader, did you
Mm.
take your team with you?
Yeah, because without it, it's not going to
Mhm.
work. Yeah. So I think everything we've covered in this series so far will support us in producing results. But I think in light of the questions we've received lately, Lisa, around this topic, uh, for today's episode, maybe we should have a look at a few key sort of practical strategies
Yeah.
that can help us, regardless of the size of your team or the company or the challenge that you're up against. And they are sort of, if we look at fostering a culture of innovation, if we go in and take about how we can focus on what you can control, and then staying positive and resilience, and then one which I think is really key, learning from the experience, because not everything is going to be this A to B straight line. There is going to be a lot of different roads we might need to take to get there. So it's about learning from the experiences so we can go stronger as
No,
people and leaders.
absolutely, Pernille. If I could take the first one, the foster of culture of innovation, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was reading a study, and it was named Culture of Innovation, Foundation for Business Resilience and Economic Recovery. And that defined the culture of innovation as this ongoing ability to respond quickly to challenges. So again, it's that agility piece that we keep talking on about. And and the research found that fostering an environment where this continuous innovation can thrive is really a key to long-term resilience and successful results. And that we can form that through nurturing a set of values, a set of beliefs and behaviours that just really encourage and support creativity, create experimentation, and also continuous learning and development. And I know, Pernille, you've talked about ensuring clear communication and transparency in crisis, and I think that's equally crucial in fostering innovation. If your team are aware of the situation, if they feel included, they're then going to feel empowered to take ownership in their roles and then be able to overcome that crisis and move forward. They gain more confidence in their ability to make decisions, move quickly. So I think, where appropriate, we can remove that it's a me problem because you're the leader, and share and remove those barriers to allow creative problem solving. Let ideas flow, solutions to be forward, and just really need to be open to asking and seeking support whenever necessary, not seeing that as a weakness, but as a strength, that you're open to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what you're saying there also fits very well into when we spoke about this freeze, fight, or flight. We don't have to be Superman that sort of flies forward alone and actually leaves everybody behind. It's probably much more super person-like if we get people included and get people involved. And for those of you who attended last episode where we spoke about agility, and I shared a story about a GM I worked with in I think it was 2020, 2021. And he found that agility was actually not only an option, but a must. And when he realized that and really got into it, he got his team involved, and they were actually running, initiatives, the team. And one of the key changes he implemented in his hotel was a weekly review session on feedback from the patrons and the guests. And then the team found creative ways of overcoming the issues and moving the service forward. And he always tells me now, because we still speak, that without the team, he would not have been able to come up with half of the ideas and initiatives that they did as a group. And it was through that they were able to still get results in this time of unknown, which the early days of COVID really was.
Yeah. I think a single person can't take you through. You need that team. And I think it was interesting that what came out last week from our group coaching session, Pernille, about that sometimes we've got to unlearn what we've learned, like sort of unravel everything and remove those barriers in order to allow innovation to break through. And it's only then that this creative culture can nurture, I suppose. I worked with a large property that established those like key stakeholders in each of their functions at different levels quite early on to prevent silo barriers because they found that every department was working sort of at a different pace with different goals, etc. So they weren't a united front. So they really worked hard on opening the lines of communication and fostering good relationships. And because this had been established across the business, they really did have that additional agility when any crisis situation occurred. And they had this real challenge, and they were just so grateful that they could gain different perspectives from different angles within the business. It didn't only serve the GM when they had a challenge, it also supported them in generally moving forward as a team. So the business started to grow as well.
And I think that's what common goals often do. They get unity so that you move forward in force. Yeah, it's compounded. And as a leader, if you're sitting here watching right now or listening in, I just want you to sort of take a moment to reflect on this. As a leader, think about the behaviors that you exhibit that helps you to nurture this kind of environment. What's currently serving this? And if any, what might be a barrier or needs that you need to be working on right now? Because there are just so many benefits that this can bring, from influencing people around you, continuous improvement, reward and recognition, minimizing fear of failure. And what I love about this is it's just ways of being, thinking, or acting. It's not about any specialty knowledge that's required, which tells us that everybody can do this if they're just willing to feel uncomfortable for a little while. And it's just changes in the way of thinking that can make such a big difference. And that's what mindset is all about. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And what's important in all of this is, I think, to remember is that we need to start spending more time focusing on what you can control and then take some action. People in general, I think, and I mean, we saw that when we were talking to the group. I can't remember if it was the last session or the session before, but they spent too much time focusing on what they have absolutely no control over. And that creates frustration, and it creates anxiety, and it creates this feeling of not being good enough. Yeah. And if that's you, then here are a few tips or steps that can help you change your focus. And it all starts by identifying controllable factors. What is it that you can and what is it that you cannot control? And focus your energy on what you can control, such as your actions, your responses, your decisions, the environment you're creating. And then it's about developing a plan, intention and a plan, some actionable steps or plan for the area that you can control, because this is going to help people provide direction and help you stay organized. And when I say develop a plan, it doesn't mean to be you sitting doing this all alone, and it doesn't need to be a fully formulated plan. It can just be sort of some checkpoints in, so that especially in a crisis, you don't have so much time, but so that people can help fill in the, we know we need to hit this milestone. How I get there maybe can be a little bit creative because of circumstances and situations. And then it's about staying flexible because of exactly that. Things are going to change. That's the only constant is change. Yeah. So if you're flexible and you allow yourself to be flexible, then it also allows you to respond really effectively to new challenges. And it's not like somebody kicks away the legs under you. And then it's practice self-care. And I know a few sessions ago, you spent a good portion of time talking about this because it is so vital to everybody. It's about taking care of your own well-being and ensuring that you have the energy and resilience so that you can lead effectively. And this includes things like managing stress, getting enough rest, what is it, the curve of delusion that you spoke about? Yeah, we need
Zone of
to,
delusion.
yeah, exactly. It's okay to be in stressed and stretched a little bit, but we need to make sure we're not in there too long and that we take care of ourselves and that we maintain a healthy work-life balance, which looks different from different people. Because if we do that as leaders, chances are that our teams are going to mimic it. And that's how we create a new culture.
Yeah. And that leads us really nicely into that same positive and resilient Pernilla as well. And like I said, you said I talked a little bit about that in the last episode because it is so important. Before we do, I just want to go back to that control aspect because how often do you see people chasing their tail and trying to control everything?
I mean, as leaders, I think it's just something that's so in us because the old way of leading was that we needed to be in charge and know all the answers. And we tried to control everything, even non-controllable pieces of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
And in one of our last cohorts, so it wasn't in this one, but it was one of our the cohort before that in our group session, we had a leader who was desperately trying to control areas that was really out of his control. And he got frustrated and almost burned out, not even realizing that he was sort of barking up the wrong tree, if you can put it that way. And when we were able to help him realize where he was spending his energy, he was able to let go of things that he had no control over and instead use the energy because he had high energy, yeah, where he could make a huge impact for the team.
Mm-hmm.
And it was quite an aha moment, not only for him, but remember for the entire group that, hey, sometimes we are really spending our time on the wrong things and being too overly controlling.
Yeah. And it's about that getting a new perspective, isn't it? About being open to looking at things differently. And I think that then goes back to asking for help where needed. And inviting others' opinions and support as well.
Yeah.
So very important lessons learned. And in terms of self-care, I mean, you'll have heard this before, but we've all been on aeroplanes before, and if we think back to the safety announcement, what did they say about your oxygen masks? You're told to put your own mask on first. You're told to take care of yourself so that you can then go on and support others as well. And I think in the same way in life, we need to do that. In personal and in work mode, both physical and mental.
Mm.
And I think this is especially important in those times of crisis, as your team are going to look to you, as you said, Pernilla, for guidance and support. And to coin a phrase, you need to be crisis fit. You need to be ready for when the challenging times come. And I think if you're always running around with your hair's on fire, what kind of message does that send?
Mm.
Who's going to
Absolutely.
have that faith in you that you're going to be able to take control of the situation and get those results.
Yeah. And I think that's such a great picture you're giving there, somebody running around. And I want people just a moment to go back to this analogy that we so often use about this quiet mountain lake where we drop a stone in and the rings it sends out. So what is it? What's the message you are sending out if you're running around, like you say, like your hair was on fire? You will find that very quickly people will be mimicking it, yeah, because that's sort of the tone you set. And it reminds me of a director of food and beverage who attended one of our sessions last year, and he was a first-time director of food and beverage, so really wanting to prove that he deserved the role. And that's so normal when we're in a new role for the first time. We don't want to let people down, but sometimes we actually let ourselves down with it, yeah. And he was so in the thick of it because he didn't quite trust his team and didn't get them involved, and therefore he struggled to drive results. And he had a need to sort of check and double check on his team's every move, and he felt that he had to make every single decision. Instead of, supervising and leading his team, he was almost almost too involved, almost doing people's job things for people, yeah. And therefore things just didn't move along as fast as it could have. And he gotten his team and he could have gotten his team and his managers much more involved. And he was really struggling getting the results that he needed to get. And it wasn't until he let go a bit of, of this control and started trusting the teams and got them involved that he started actually turning the ship around, yeah.
Yeah, and in terms of turning that ship around, it's that we go back to that your results matter, don't they?
Yeah.
The outcomes matter. And all of this, the resilience, you're looking at what you control, all links to that results. And I would say sort of taking some of the pressure off yourself. Because when pressure is too high, that is when your performance decreases, and that is when the results start to drop. So soon the effects of stress take over. You see effects of fatigue, it sets in, and then errors are made, and then all your stress symptoms will begin to develop.
Yeah. And when you talk about stress symptoms, Lisa, well, what do you mean by stress symptom?
Like the frustration, the anxiety that can breed, which leads to poor concentration, and shame about not being able to cope. That those sort of feelings start to take over. And you get that self-talk that's telling you that you're not doing a good job. For me personally, it also affects my sleep. I don't know about you, Pernilla.
Absolutely. It's sleep with me as well. I know that when I have a difficult night where, one of those where you wake up and you dream of falling or whatever it is, something is brewing and I have to change or shift something. So really sleep is a big indicator for me as well.
Yeah. And then we're not at our best, and then in the world of work, performance and therefore results begin to plummet. You mentioned it earlier, when the pressure is on, we can also sometimes enter the zone of delusion. And this is where we falsely believe, and I know I've definitely been a victim of this, falsely believe that performance is going to improve if we keep working harder, if we keep working longer hours. And rather than getting better, it really does get worse, because we're getting tired, we're getting more frustrated, we lose focus, and we're just frantically trying to control everything. And we start to make mistakes, and then your behaviors change as well. And when this is high and sustained, then you've even got that danger of going into the burnout zone. And I think definitely in crisis, we tend to experience exhaustion from chronic stress, because we are working harder and longer, and we want to make change and make it better. But so our body perpetually draws on its survival mechanisms. So it believes, again, as you mentioned earlier, in physical danger, and the fight or flight response takes over. Adrenaline and cortisol really are running the show now, and with little chance of focusing on complex mental tasks or making those good decisions. And that is when then you just need immediate rest, because you can't carry on in that fashion.
Yeah. I mean, as a leader, if you don't take care of your well-being and resilience, you will be less likely to lead your team effectively. It's just a fact. Demonstrating that it's okay to do this will also give your team permission to do the same and foster increased resilience, because you have individual resilience, but you also have team resilience, don't you? So you can increase resilience when it's needed, because your team will have the reserve to deal with stressful situations when it comes. See, and it's important to go in and sort of see where your team are at and talk to them, ask them. Often we have people saying, but how do you know where the team is at? Ask a question. It's as simple as that. And we forget sometimes that we can just ask them. So it's important that we understand how, first of all, we react to pressure, but also our team. So the impact of too much pressure is a little bit like, I like using the elastic that you pull and pull and pull and pull. And if you stretch it too much, then at one point it will snap.
Yeah.
And we all got to find a way to push and pull so that it's healthy. And we have to remember we need time to recover if we've been pulled for too long. We can still make it go back into its original shape, but it's going to take a little while. So we need to make sure we understand that pull and push effect for ourselves and our teams.
Yeah. So in practical terms then, Pernilla, what kinds of questions would you ask yourself to gain that awareness?
So I think one of the first one is ask yourself, how do you react when a crisis hit or adversity or a challenge or that email you weren't expecting, that little thing that makes you stop up. So ask yourself, how do you react? And then try and go in and ask, where are the team likely to be sitting with this as well? How are they feeling? How is this affecting them? And is there a risk of everyone entering the delusion zone and possibly burnout? That's another good question, I think. And if we get to that, how will that serve you and your team in the future? So how can you use this information then to make informed decisions of how to tackle things moving forward? I mean, one thing for certain is how we learn from experience matter. And I know it's one of your mottos as well, Lisa, it's it always comes up. Yeah. We all know the famous quote from Albert Einstein. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And aren't we all a little bit sinners of that?
Yeah. We can all bang our heads as though we're banging our heads on a brick wall, and get nowhere, and I see it so many times though, because I think it's natural that unless it's intentional, that we revert back to our old ways of thinking, doing and being. But if we do that, then, how have we grown? And, how have we learned anything? And if a similar situation or circumstance or crisis arose, then are we prepared to do something different?
Yeah.
And I think there will be some fundamental aspects of the business that maybe can't and shouldn't be changed. But we should create a continuous cycle of doing, reflecting and applying where changes are needed and where things can be improved. The main thing is, as you said, just be curious, ask questions of yourself, ask questions of others, ask questions of the situation, and then with those answers, put together an action plan for change, an action plan for what needs to be done differently.
So I'm curious, what type of questions would you ask?
So I would, again, look at certain situations and think about, what particular actions did I take at each stage?
Yeah,
what decisions did I make? Were they good decisions? Could the decisions have been different? And what was the impact that had, not on just the situation, but on the team as well?
And I think that's really an important one. How do I affect things and people around me?
Yeah. Because decisions that you make generally will affect others. And like we said, the worst thing we can do is repeat the same and same again. So thinking about, how well equipped was I to deal with the situation? How well equipped was the team? Were there any skill gaps that were identified? So do I need to recruit? Do I need to get different resources in the team? What went well and what could be improved? What needs to be put into place to be stronger in the future? And were there any casualties? You know, is there anybody that needs to be taken care of so that they can bounce backwards? You know, how do I re-engage my people going forward? So there are so many questions, you know, Pernilla, maybe I think we should maybe put a question sheet together, you know, that can be used as a sort of a checklist, because I just think you can't ask enough questions.
Yeah.
But then you've got to be prepared to do something with the answers.
And I've taken note, we will come up with a question sheet. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as you said, if we ask, then we also need to act. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's such an important message you're coming there with, Lisa. It's and during COVID, the organizations that really bloomed were the ones that did something about it. They asked questions and they did something about it. They didn't get paralyzed, but they saw opportunities and they decided to control what they could control and took actions to get new results. So yeah, very, very important point there. Lisa, I'm noticing that it's 11 o'clock in my time, 10 o'clock your time. So we've hit the 30 minutes mark. So maybe let me just take a moment to remind you all about our next episode, which is fulfilling commitments and unveiling the path forward. And in case you haven't attended all our sessions, then you can watch the previous episodes on either LinkedIn or you can go to our YouTube channel and watch them. And in our next session, which is about fulfilling commitment and unveiling the path forward, we'll look at how you can move forward no matter what gets thrown at you. And we'll talk about the path forward from here, and we will look at commitments to yourself and your own development and your own future. So remember, as usual, feel free to email us should you have any particular questions that you would like us to answer, and we'd be more than happy to either answer it back in an email or weave it into our next session, depending on what type of question it is. And then don't forget to head into our YouTube channel and like and subscribe to our page. Our page is Lead, Learn, and Thrive in Tomorrow's World. And we look forward for all of you to join us in our next episode, which is Tuesday, August 27 at 9:30 a.m. UK time, 10:30 a.m. Central European Summer Time, 4:30 p.m. Hong Kong time, and that is 4:30 a.m. in New York or Eastern Standard Time. So until then, as usual, stay curious, stay resilient, and stay prepared, and see you on August 27.